Drivers test at the new look Sonoma Raceway, and is NASCAR looking to take over the Long Beach Grand Prix? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you're doing well. We've got a lot to get to. At the end of this episode, special guest Dale Tanhardt will join the show to talk a little Richmond. You can look for that full video later this afternoon. But first, gosh, I don't know what to say, y'all. I've become the thing I swore to destroy. Now I'm looking at NASCAR TV ratings nearly every single week. It's just because they've been very interesting to start this year. Circuit of the Americas numbers are in. The Cup race at COTA earned 3.31 million viewers on Fox. That's up 6% from the same race last year, but down significantly from 2022, which I believe saw around 3.7 million viewers. This is the fifth straight Cup Series race to see year-over-year viewership increases, and it's worth noting that the Xfinity Series race even saw a 10% year-over-year increase. Tons of positive momentum to start this season. I hate to be a downer, but I think COTA's numbers aren't as impressive as they seem. Again, while it's up a little bit over last year, it's still down from 2022. Granted, this year's race wasn't nearly as compelling, I would say, as 2022's race, and that finish in 2022 with Allmendinger and Chastain and Bowman. Memorable stuff. We didn't see that same kind of action this weekend. I'm sure that did impact the numbers somewhat. Still, we will continue to monitor the ratings as the year goes on. Not necessarily every single week. I do hate zeroing in and focusing on this one sort of macro number. I think there's a ton of more interesting details around the sport that we could refer to instead. But NASCAR does care deeply about the ratings. Networks care about the ratings. Advertisers, sponsors care about the ratings. That's why we pay attention to that big old number every single week. Moving on, yesterday, Goodyear conducted a tire test at the newly repaved Sonoma Raceway. Look at those beautiful green wine country hills. NASCAR, of course, will race at Sonoma in June when everything's dusty and dry. But this week, Josh Berry, Ross Chastain, and Martin Truex Jr. made laps. I saw someone point this out on Twitter. It actually is kind of interesting that Josh Berry and Stewart-Haas Racing are there, considering the very valid reports recently that they will likely not be with Ford next season. It's not a done deal, but that's where things seem to be trending. Interesting that they would be the Ford representative at this test. It could just be that it was their turn. I mean, for now, Stewart-Haas is a Ford team. They are sharing data back and forth with Ford for now. A few weeks ago at North Wilkesboro, Penske was the Ford team there. During the offseason at Phoenix, both Penske and RFK sent Ford, so maybe it was just Stewart-Haas's turn. They are still a Ford team for now. But I did think that was a bit interesting. More interesting, though, were Martin Truex Jr.'s comments after making laps. Again, this is a newly, freshly repaved Sonoma Raceway. Won't be nearly as abrasive as it's been in recent seasons. Truex said after the test, quote, "We're running faster than track record in race trim for 12 laps. 13 laps is the most I've run. Unbelievably faster. It feels like a different place. It feels even narrower than it used to feel because of the speed. A lot faster, a lot more grip." A lot of that sounds cool, fast, a lot of grip, narrow, but that also means little to no tire fall off. Remember how many passes we saw at Bristol a couple weeks ago? That's because tire fall off was to the extreme. With little to no fall off and high speeds at Sonoma Raceway, we might see some great action, but I don't expect to see much passing. Remember, NASCAR road course racing was best when the cars sucked. Heavy machines meandering around corners, wheel hopping every other lap. The next-gen car is too good at road courses, and now in the case of Sonoma Raceway, the track is too good. Good does not equal good road course racing. I don't know if that makes sense. My math's not quite adding up, but you know what I'm trying to say? I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't expect to see much passing at Sonoma in June. I'm not really looking forward to that race. It was already arguably my least favorite road course on the schedule. This repave likely won't help things. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. Let's go from one well-known California road course to another, a little further south along the coast. Bombshell story broke yesterday. Marshall Pruett writing for Racer.com, reports that NASCAR has been actively pursuing the 50% ownership stake of the Long Beach Grand Prix, the 50% stake that is currently owned by the estate of Kevin Kalkoven. NASCAR interested in Long Beach. What could this mean? Ben Kennedy of NASCAR issued this statement to Racer.com, quote, "The Southern California market is extremely important to NASCAR. We have explored several different options in the area and will continue to do so. I won't speak specifically to any particular racetrack in Southern California, but will say that if we had our druthers, we would have a race in Southern California every year." This is a very interesting, developing story. It makes all the sense in the world why NASCAR would be interested in Long Beach. NASCAR wants to be in Southern California. Ben Kennedy continues to make that extremely clear, and I agree. It is a huge media market. NASCAR should be there if at all possible. The clash at the Coliseum has likely run its course. That Dodger Stadium proposal never went anywhere and likely never will. Auto Club Speedway lays mostly in ruin with no sign of short track construction beginning anytime soon. So Long Beach, a street course, NASCAR has proven in the last year they can put on a compelling street course event. Makes all the sense in the world. Now, there's no guarantee this means a cup race will come to Long Beach, but I imagine if NASCAR is planning to shell out quite a bit of cash, they've got big plans for the venue. And keep in mind, IMSA already shares the Long Beach Grand Prix weekend with IndyCar. IMSA, of course, is owned by NASCAR. So NASCAR is already in some way, shape, or form invested in the event. Now they want to own at least half of the Long Beach Grand Prix. Again, from a business standpoint, from NASCAR's perspective, this makes all the sense in the world. But where things get a bit more complicated, a little more tense, perhaps, is when you read a little further down into Marshall Pruitt's Racer.com piece. Again, I'll link this down in the description below. I highly encourage you to go check out the full write-up. But Marshall Pruitt reports that his sources are telling him that the Penske Entertainment Group, who owns IndyCar, are planning to make their own offer for that 50% Long Beach Grand Prix stake in an attempt to block NASCAR. You got Penske and NASCAR potentially in a bidding war, butting heads at odds with one another. I think that report is signaling to a lot of folks in the racing industry that NASCAR may not just be interested in buying up some of the Long Beach Grand Prix just to make some money or for IMSA or maybe to bring NASCAR over, but that NASCAR, if they own 50% of the event, could box out IndyCar entirely. It's too early to say if that's a real concern, but think about it. If NASCAR owns half the event, NASCAR these days is a much bigger motorsport series than IndyCar. I think it's no secret IndyCar, unfortunately, is struggling quite a bit. The ratings are down. Honda is threatening to potentially pull out of the series. If NASCAR owns half the event, I don't think it's far-fetched to think it could become an IMSA NASCAR Cup Series weekend, and IndyCar could be excluded. I think IndyCar is certainly afraid of that possibility. That's why the Penske Entertainment Group is reportedly trying to block NASCAR's bid. So that's why this is complicated. A few months back, I suggested that Long Beach would be a great opportunity for NASCAR to stay in Southern California. It's an established course. Might have to make some modifications here and there. I don't know what's possible. There are some narrow, tight corners that I'm not sure stock cars would handle best at. But it's an established track, more or less. That could be NASCAR's ticket to staying in Southern California as long as the Auto Club project remains in limbo. I was naive to assume that NASCAR and IndyCar could peacefully coexist. In my eyes, NASCAR could build their Long Beach event around whatever IndyCar and IMSA are putting together, but boy, the schedule gets packed really quickly. I'm not sure now that's realistic. The Long Beach Grand Prix has been a staple on the IndyCar schedule since the mid-1980s. As much as I would love to see NASCAR run a street course on the West Coast, if it comes at the expense of IndyCar, I don't love that. And I think a lot of hardcore race fans would agree. It's probably the right business decision. IndyCar is kind of struggling. This is a great opportunity for NASCAR to swoop in and do something that could be great for their business. I guess what I'm saying is I would not be a very good, big corporate CEO. I'm not a good, ruthless businessman. I don't know what to think. We don't know if this deal will ever go through. Perhaps IndyCar wins the bidding war, and they're able to secure the Long Beach Grand Prix for many more years to come. But if NASCAR takes over at least some control of the event, what will happen next? I don't think anyone knows for sure. Some NASCAR fans will push back against the idea of another street race. Now, I think the schedule can handle 2. I don't think we should have more than 2, and if we do add a Long Beach street race, maybe there's another road course on the schedule, like the Roval, perhaps, that should go away for good. Just put the Oval back on the schedule. But I do think 2 street races, completely different regions, different areas of the country, would be great for NASCAR as it continues to grow and modernize its brand. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. The fact that IndyCar and NASCAR are supposedly in a bidding war for the Long Beach Grand Prix, again, just 50% stake. That is significant for sure. What does that tell you? What do you think happens next? Let me know down in the comment section below. There's still a lot that we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a little Richmond Raceway. Dale Tanhardt's been on the show a few times in the past. You can find all his socials down in the description. He's a streamer, he's a content creator, he's a NASCAR numbers guy, and he's also co-hosting a new truck series focused podcast called The Pickup Throwdown, which I'll also link down in the description. The full video will be up later today, but consider this a teaser. Dale tells us why he has his eyes on Martin Truex Jr. this weekend. If you're not into betting, which I understand many are not, I think there's still a lot of great numbers, stats, information here that could help you with your NASCAR fantasy picks, or could just make you more informed heading into the upcoming Cup Series race weekend. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's bring Dale in right here, right now. Joe Gibbs Racing is off to a very strong start this season. They've historically been very good at Richmond. I've noticed this stat. Pre-next gen, the final 8 Richmond races of the Gen 6 era, Joe Gibbs Racing won 6 of them. 75% winning percentage. That's pretty great. Or 750 winning percentage, however they calculate that. But since the next gen was introduced, it's only 4 races at Richmond, but they've only got that 1 win spring of 22 with Denny Hamlin. So do you like the other Toyota or the other Joe Gibbs Racing drivers this weekend?
Yeah, I got my eye on Martin Truex Jr., and it's crazy how good their lineup is right now, man. I mean, Christopher Bell has been awesome to start 2024. Coulda, shoulda, woulda won the COTA race had that gone a little bit differently with their pit stops, and if the strategy may have worked a little bit better. I mean, he literally a lap short of passing William Byron for the win. Ty Gibbs has been knocking on the door. You just talked about Denny Hamlin. But Martin Truex has been awesome at Richmond in the latter half of his career. And one big thing that sticks out to me, I talked about, is a night race. Last 4 night races at Richmond, 3 of them have been won by Martin Truex Jr. And in the one that he didn't win, fall of 2020, he finished second to Brad Keselowski. So, look, everybody wants the Mondays are for Martin type of vibe, narrative. He always wins Monday races, but he always wins night races, too, when it comes to Richmond Raceway. And one thing I think about here, as ESPN Bet has the best line on Truex, by the way, it's 6.5 to 1. That's something I might be willing to bet before we get to practice and qualifying in case he shows really good long-run speed, which is something that the books have been valuing more recently over the past year or so with lap averages. But what I wanted to say about Martin Truex Jr. is he's got racetracks that he is just dominant at, right?
Yeah.
When I think of Martin Truex Jr. approved racetracks, I think of Sonoma, track he won at last year, knocked it off in the Gen 7 era. I think of New Hampshire, a track that he knocked off in the Gen 7 era. And I think of Dover, a track that he knocked off in the Gen 7 era. The one that he's missing, a track that he's been very dominant at, is Richmond. Richmond is the one big Martin Truex Jr. approved racetrack that he hasn't won at. When you look at the spring over the past 2 years, he's up there with William Byron on the most laps led. And if it wasn't for strategy, being on the wrong side of strategy in 2022 spring and 2023 spring, he'd probably be in victory lane back to back. So it's been interesting at this race with the way the strategies worked out with the 2-stop, 3-stop, and the tire strategy with the fall off. I mean, spring 2022, Denny Hamlin unlapped himself on the final run and repassed Truex and William Byron to win that race. And it is super compelling, but I figured third time would be the charm in this race for Truex to knock it off, and 6.5 to 1 is just calling my name.
Big thank you to Dale for being on the show, and a huge thank you to you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for more NASCAR content every single day, every single week, all year long, and a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. I will see you all again soon. Take care. Catch you in the next episode.